Hello, my name is Richard Waugh from Zycus. Welcome to our procurement performance video, part 2 in a series on the 12 steps to strategic sourcing success. And in this phase, we're going to deal with the strategy execution. And step 5 in the process overall then is standardizing sourcing. And this is really key to success here, where you can identify the fact that 72% of the best in class, the top performers according to Aberdeen Group benchmarks, have implemented a formalized standard sourcing process, something they're 43% more likely than all the others in the market to have implemented and to follow on a rigorous basis. Some examples of the benefits of a standardized sourcing process from our own customer base include a customer in higher education that realized 75% cycle time reduction, from 8 weeks down to only about 2 weeks for the typical sourcing project. So rigor and discipline doesn't have to come at the expense of speed. In this case, they actually accelerated the process significantly. And savings are realized as a result of this process too. So a transportation client, for instance, having implemented an automated and rigorous strategic sourcing discipline, overall has realized 20 to 30% savings on average from an RFP process that they brought online, and auction savings as high as 80%. So when it comes to sourcing best practices, it sort of follows the 10,000 hours rule from Malcolm Gladwell in his book Outliers, essentially saying that if you do anything over and over again, 10,000 hours in this case, you can become expert. So sourcing best practice follows that and really looks at the entire end-to-end process. So one important pitfall to be avoided here is a lot of organizations look at the sourcing process as having been completed once the RFX event is in place and some savings have been identified. Studies show that on average, the 5.4% savings that are identified through a negotiating event only translate to 3.2% implemented and realized savings. So that's a 40% leakage that occurs after the event. And that's because organizations don't follow through the entire process and continue to focus on an end-to-end discipline. Step 6 then, encourage supplier innovation. So having sung the praises of discipline and rigor and process, it's also important when engaging suppliers to have flexibility in that bidding process. So don't just get your lowest price from the suppliers, but get their best ideas for new innovation and ways to drive productivity, and work with those suppliers through joint development and productivity programs. At the end of these sourcing events and projects, it's important then to optimize the supplier bids to arrive at the most advantageous award decisions, and this is particularly true with more complex categories. So a lot of organizations have picked the lower hanging fruit in strategic sourcing and have to go after more complex categories to continually drive the next wave of savings. And in that arena, the lowest price does not always equal the lowest total cost of ownership. To get at and unlock those savings, it takes scalable tools to deal with more complex categories. So for instance, being able to analyze supplier bids across total cost parameters, and that may involve tens of thousands or thousands of line items and hundreds of suppliers. So an example in our own customer base, an electrical manufacturer, had 7,000 items in their bid package and over 150 suppliers. That process typically took 5 or 6 months to complete because of the complexity. Bringing that online, they were able to reduce the cycle time by 65%. So in 1 month, being able to identify savings and put them in motion, in place, if you will, begin realizing them instead of having to wait 5 or 6 months to get to that stage. And that's because they could analyze a critical mass of supplier content in terms of the bid structure and be able to weight and score those responses, run multiple what-if scenarios to arrive at the most effective, optimal award decision in this strategy execution phase. So the next video in our series will talk about taking that execution and making it sustainable and lasting in strategy realization. So I hope you'll join us for that. Hope you enjoyed today's session. Thanks very much for tuning in.